911 responders. What is a call that you will never forget? Story 1. This isn't mine, but a friend of mine fielded this call. An elderly gentleman called 911 to notify them that his wife had passed in her sleep. Only it was like 7 o'clock at night. Apparently, he just couldn't deal with it emotionally, so he got her dressed, took her out to the car, and drove around doing his errands for the day, watched some TV together, and then after 12 hours or so, he finally sort of accepted that she was gone and called 911. When I used to work in a care home, we had an undertaker come to talk to us about what happens to people after they die. With regards to the undertaker's job, e.g. collecting them, preparing the body, etc. He said his worst and most memorable call was to the house of an elderly couple. The wife had passed away in bed and he was sitting down in the living room. He didn't know how long she had been gone for, maybe hours. When the undertaker went upstairs to start the removal of the body, he realized she was still alive, breathing very shallowly. The undertakers had to tell the man that she was still here, but they stayed with him until she did pass. I attended a DOA many years ago with an elderly man with advanced dementia. His wife refused to put him in a home and insisted on caring for him at home. She put him to bed one night, looked in on him later, and found him to be breathing very slow and shallow. She closed the door, went into the kitchen and made herself a cup of tea, had her cup, and then went and checked on him again. He had died, so she rang us. She openly stated to us that she knew he was dying, so she let him go properly before she involved us, so that we wouldn't try to resuscitate him. This is exactly how it should be. Story 2. Someone called stating that they had seen a man on a small island on the lake hours ago, but now the man was gone and his boat was still out there. An older woman called in half an hour later stating her husband had gone missing. He was last seen taking his boat out on the lake sometime overnight. The increasing tension in her voice as she noticed sheriff's deputies were already dredging the lake was something else. She was calm but clearly actively dealing with the fact her husband was likely dead. They found his body not long after I hung up with her. Sometimes it's the people screaming that get to you. Sometimes it's the quiet acceptance of a horrible truth that stays with you longer. 4 years ago, when my dad wouldn't answer his phone, his girlfriend called me. We both were concerned that something may have happened to him. She was very apprehensive about driving to his house to check on him. I finally told her I would drive 2.5 hours to check on him. She was only a half an hour from his house. Since it was already 10 at night, she told me not to worry about driving up to check and that she would. That was the longest half an hour of my life. I paced my house. I resigned myself that he had died. She called me when she got to his house, and I'll never forget the scream she let out when she found him dead on the deck from a massive heart attack. Her scream would haunt me, but that half hour of dread was awful. I can't imagine what that half-hour drive was like for her. I have a similar story about waiting for the call. My son had made friends with a little girl while we were living at an apartment complex a few years ago. I also made friends with her mom when they were all playing at the playground. We would text and hang out outside while the kids played. She and her husband were so sweet, and the kids all got along great. She confided in me that she and her husband were in recovery from heroin abuse. One day, my son walked over to her house to play, and my daughter and I followed a few minutes later. We found the mom in her room passed out, and I knew right away she used it again. I kicked the kids out and had them get a neighbor while I dialed 911 and started chest compressions. Once the ambulance came and took her away, I called her mom and told her. Her daughter had nowhere to go, so I just brought her to my house while we waited for the call. I knew in my heart she was gone, but her daughter kept saying, "I hope my mom is okay." My son is the sweetest kid and best friend anyone could have ever had, and he just held her hand on the couch while I ordered a pizza. It was the longest hour of my life, but it was nothing compared to the little girl. I'll never get over her death, and I still think about both of them all the time. Went to a local sub shop with my mom, a retired nurse, and my girlfriend at the time. While we're standing in line, we hear a guy yelling at his friend to wake up. "Carl? Carl, wake up! Wake the hell up!" We turn around to see what's going on, and this dude looks dead. Pale skin, blue eyes. My mom lays him out on the floor, calls for an ambulance, and starts compressions. The pair also had a little girl with them, apparently Carl's daughter. The most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen was that little girl asking her daddy to wake up. It's been 7 years or so, and I can still see it like it was this afternoon. Semi-happy ending, Carl didn't die. Ambulance shows up, Narcans him, and boom, like it never even happened. Of course, they took him away in the ambulance and his friend got arrested. Turned out he'd been shooting up in the bathroom. Since then, though, I've thought about that little girl so many times and always hoped that she's doing well. I also hope Carl turns things around for his and his daughter's sake. I get frustrated about addicts' behaviors, but it is a disease, and especially with opiates. Many people get hooked on these things because of their doctors pushing stuff way stronger than needed and way too much of it. Mental illness also plays a role in it with many others. He got a chance to keep on living, which means he may have been able to get treatment and turn his life around. I hope so. And I do hope the daughter was able to get therapy and work through it. It had to be horribly traumatic seeing her father like that. Damn glad that Narcan is so widely available these days, too. I wish it didn't need to be, but I'm glad it is. I work for my county government in the mailroom, and we send out lots of Narcan pens to people who request them from the health department, free of charge. Story 3. A man called to report a male was breaking into his neighbor's vehicle across the street. A few minutes into the call, the man came and started to break into the caller's vehicle. A few minutes later, the man spotted my caller and broke into his house from the window. Spent 10 minutes listening to a physical fight when I finally heard the police enter the house and say, "There's blood everywhere." Both the intruder and caller died. Oh, and another 911 dispatcher had my caller's wife and kids on the other line who were hiding upstairs and heard everything. I talked to a lot of people who were shot, stabbed, beaten in the final moments of their lives, but you usually get them after the situation occurs. This caller was just trying to look out for his neighbors, and I spent a good 15 to 20 minutes bantering while waiting for officers to arrive and get the auto thief. Getting to joke around and get to know someone's personality before they violently die is a lot different than taking a call after violence has occurred. Gotta love cities where a literal felony is in progress and the police still take over 20 minutes to show up. I had a drunk driver hit my vehicle and continue driving, managing to get all the way home, without freaking K-wording anyone, thankfully. And when the police showed up to meet me 45 minutes later, they say that she can't be arrested because they don't know if she started drinking when she got home. Despite my day, came footage of her swerving all over the road and stumbling out of her car when she got home. She was eventually held responsible in civil court, and I was reimbursed for damages and a medical exam. I won't leave my city because the issue was heard by the chief and the officer was let go. But in my North Texas city, someone spent 2 hours trying to kick in my neighbor's door. He has a door bar, so she was unsuccessful. She was high and in the wrong apartment. The cops never showed up. I called the deputy chief to question this. She did an investigation and said, "You deserve to hear this from the chief himself." The chief called my neighbor and said the officer only drove by because he figured she was either gone or got what she wanted. I realized nobody can protect you better than yourself. My husband is an over-the-road trucker, so he can be gone for several days. I keep a loaded gun next to my bed in a special compartment that the kids can't open. Having my home broken into when it's just me and the little kids has been one of my greatest fears. I'm looking forward to the day he won't have to work so hard, so he can be home with a regular job. Story 4. Working as a deputy sheriff, got a 911 call to the local park for a dead body by self-unaliving. Got there, and this lady with a flashlight waved us down. As we approached, we yelled out asking if she was the caller. She said yes. We yelled out again where the body was. She said right here. Pulled out a gun and committed the act right in front of us. She wanted to make sure we found her body before the kids showed up the next morning to play in the park. This is why we need mercy euthanasia laws in every jurisdiction. This kind of trauma for first responders is unnecessary, as is the suffering and pain of those who are done living. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I hope you've gotten some assistance in dealing with the psychological repercussions of this incident, and I'm happy the woman is no longer suffering. We had something similar happen in our town less than 2 years ago. I work adjacent to law enforcement. We were unloading a truck at night when we got the emergency alert that there was an active shooter on the property. Of course, we're worried, wondering if we need to close up and take shelter, but the truck is not something you want to leave halfway through unloading. I called the dispatcher to see if they could tell me what was going on. They didn't know much, but could tell me that the incident was called in several miles away. It's a big property. I found out a few days later that it was a man who had called the police to let them know that he had a gun and was going to unalive himself. He wanted to make sure his body was found. Strangely enough, he was also near a public park, but had walked further into the woods. He had shot himself and passed before they found him. I can't imagine how that must have been for the police combing the woods at night, not knowing where, when, or what state they would find him in. terrifying. Story 5. I'm not a first responder, but in 2007, my 4 friends and I were driving home at 2 a.m. one night on the highway. No, we were not drinking that night. And up ahead in the distance, I could faintly see something in the middle of the road. It was pitch dark, and I slowed down and kept saying, what the fuck is that? Over and over again. Well, we slowed down and realized it was a black car with no headlights on, just sitting in the middle of the road, demolished. I pulled over, and me and all my friends sprinted to the car to check out to see if anyone was inside. There was a woman in the driver's seat who definitely did not survive the initial crash, face just completely embedded into the windshield. I can still see this image till this day. And we were looking as fast as we could because we were in the middle of I-95, and thankfully no other cars had come by. We heard a child faintly crying, and my friends look in the back seat and sees there's a child in a car seat who didn't look injured. So we tried to open the door, and it wouldn't fully open due to the damage to the car. So we all had to pull at this door to get it open, and let me tell you, as easy as it sounds, that was no easy task for 4 18-year-old kids. But eventually we got it open just enough to get in there and pull this child out. We get to the side of the road, and in the blink of an eye, a semi comes full speed and pulverizes the car and drags it about 100 feet before coming to a complete stop. We called the state police, and they came 15 minutes later, and we waited with the child until they came and questioned us. We were called heroes by all the officers. Later investigations revealed that she came around the turn too fast, hit the guardrail, and died on impact. On the way home, nobody made a sound. A similar-ish thing happened to me once. I was just a child, and I was with my siblings and mother. We were heading home after a dentist appointment. There had been a tractor-trailer overturned on the highway, and traffic was backed up for miles and miles. My mom drove backcountry roads for work all the time and knew how to get us home the back way, knowing it'd be faster because of the accident. It was starting to snow, and we were expecting a lot. We needed to get home before the roads got bad. I'm in the back trying to snooze when my mom suddenly slams on the brakes and tells us to stay in the car before getting out. Outlying in the middle of the road is a man. Note that it was like 15 degrees Fahrenheit and temperatures were dropping. Mom comes running back and pulls the beach towels out from under our butts that we used to somewhat protect the seats from leaks and spills and wraps him in them. She came back again to make a call from the bag phone. This was before cell phones were widely used. To 911. We stick around until the ambulance can find us out there and take him with them. He told my mom his girlfriend had kicked him out of the house without giving him any warning and didn't even let him get his coat or shoes. He was barefoot in below freezing temperatures and had no coat on. He just got so cold and his feet hurt so much that he couldn't keep walking. We still made it home before the roads iced over, but it was close. In August of 2016, I got married to my wife, and we decided to take a road trip through several states for our honeymoon. We live in southwestern Pennsylvania, so it's not uncommon to see accidents along the road. Usually I will stop and help since I have some medical knowledge that may help. I helped my mom through nursing school while I was in high school. I would read her books into a recorder so that she could listen while driving to the clinic. I also sat with her through her EMT courses. On our way home through Maryland, we were going down the interstate and came around a bend to see a massive fire in the wooded area dividing the highway. Turns out a tractor-trailer driver fell asleep, ran off the road, and caught fire. Others had already stopped, but I stopped anyway because you never know, and there were no emergency lights. It turns out no one was able to get to the driver in time, and by the time I had gotten there, the truck had actually extinguished, and it was the woods burning. I got back in my car, and my wife and I were silent, but what hit us hard was when we went around the next bend and saw a sign saying we were a mile from the next rest stop. It hit even harder the next morning when we were doing some Googling and found out he was 3 miles from his exit, and he was pushing himself to get home to surprise his wife with an early arrival. She wasn't expecting him until next week. The guy drove across the U.S. and died within 5 miles of home. Sometimes I wish parents would be more careful while driving with children. There were 2 crashes on the highway I remember vividly, both involving kids and their moms who were driving very poorly. The first one is not my story, but still horrific. Someone told me he drove past a car wreck that made him weep. It was around Christmas time, presents were scattered all over the highway, and 3 kids died because none of them had seatbelts, and the mom was severely injured. That's all the details I got from that one. The second one, this mom was weaving through traffic in some kind of a hurry or something. She disregarded a merging semi-truck and tried to pass him in the very left lane. The semi-truck didn't see her because of a blind spot, merged and prevented their car from getting crushed and slid between the concrete side and the truck. Kay worded the children. I believe it was 2 and the mother. Didn't see it go down, but I did see the aftermath. It was pretty messed up. A friend of mine in high school similarly came upon a car in the dark, but on a windy, hilly Pennsylvania back road in 95. The car was smashed half up a tree beyond the curve. When he checked inside, the woman who had been driving was completely trapped, had one of her legs bent backward at the knee with her foot by her face. There was a baby in the car seat in the back, and he took the baby and went for help. Mother and baby survived. My friend really stepped up. I can't say every 17-year-old kid in the day before cell phones could have witnessed such a scene and kept their heads. I think all first responders, even accidental ones, are really remarkable when they can make the right quick decisions. Story 6. I do search and rescue work. Got a call to respond to a missing lady in her 60s gone overnight. Police had been searching for hours with no luck, so by the time I got there, she had been missing for over 16 hours. This was my canine's first search ever, so I was super nervous, but also proud that we could help. The police kept trying to hold me to a small 10-acre set of woods, but my gut said trust my dog. She wasn't there. The police officer got angry with me and decided to go back to the 10 acres while I continued with my canine into a new area. 5 minutes later, my dog gives an alert and I watch which way she went. I climbed over a huge tree to find the lady standing there in shock. She passes out as soon as I said who I was and asked her what her name was. After years of being told I was wasting my time, my dog was crap, and if I wanted to do SAR, I should get a real dog, it was the most amazing feeling in the world. My canine is almost retired, has multiple finds and recovery under her paws now, and is just simply amazing. I'm an EMS pilot, and we get called for search and assist work from time to time. No rescue. We are just an air asset. An extra 6 eyes with a bird's eye view. I got a call a few years ago. A missing 3-year-old boy wandered off in a remote area in northern Minnesota. Peak of summer. The kid wandered off from Grandma and Grandpa's house. The area around the home is primarily national forest land, including swamps, rivers, and a junkyard. We get to the scene and the sheriff informs us the kid was last seen about 3 hours ago wearing a camo green hoodie. Super. We are in the air over a national forest looking for a tiny kid wearing camo. We focused our efforts primarily on the swamp. I've never wanted to not find someone so badly as I did when I was flying over that water. We made several passes and mercifully didn't see him. We ask the search coordinator to move on to another area, and he asks us to fly along the river. We fly over the river back and forth for about 20 minutes. Nothing. Again. Thank God. Then we are asked to assist in flying low and slow over the forest. Great. Just what every helicopter pilot loves. Low, slow flight over dense foliage. Perfect place to have an engine failure. But whatever, we want to find this kid. We never saw him, but he saw us. Sheriff spots the kid coming out of the tree line pointing at the helicopter almost 4 miles from the house. I don't know where that kid was going, but he was damn determined to get there. The little dude trekked about 4 miles through dense forest in about 3 hours. I lead a Red Cross Search and Rescue Corps in Norway. Norwegian Rescue Dogs, aka volunteer SAR dogs and their handlers, have first priority. They search an area first, and if they want to search a different spot based on their dog or their own intuition, then they can just do that. Also, the police here may be responsible for the SAR operation, but it's extremely rare for them to actually do anything of actual use to the operation, excluding the police helicopter and canine. They know that the volunteers are the ones who have the equipment, training, and knowledge, and numbers to get the job done. Story 7. A Harley motorcycle tipped over and the clutch lever went into a 4-year-old's eye. The parents were on the line asking what to do. Suddenly she said, "They're going to lift the motorcycle." I emphatically told her to tell them to stop and wait for rescue and EMS. The rescue ended up cutting off the clutch lever and transporting the kid to the hospital. She underwent surgery. That was 1982. Just last year, I met the lead rescue officer and the girl herself, now fully grown. They wanted to meet the 911 operator who saved her vision. I used to live in a trailer court and had my Harley Road King parked in my driveway. Sometimes I would come home from work and my motorcycle headlight would be on and kids' footprints on the seat. One day, I actually caught 3 neighborhood kids climbing and playing on it. I walked over to a couple of the parents' houses and told them what was happening. They seemed to not care. I had to chase them off my porch and driveway a few times. Took out a $1 million liability insurance policy while I lived there to be covered if any stupid stuff happened like in your post. Thankfully, nothing happened and I moved out a few months later. One of my friends and I were driving home and we came upon about 5 cars stopped. And in the center of the road was a kid lying on his back, obviously unconscious but breathing. His twisted bike a few feet away. He was surrounded by people. I'm not medically trained, so I stayed in the car to stay out of the way, but this one man grabbed the kid's head and not so gently straightened it. My friend and I let out gasps, and I internally cringed. About 5 minutes later, EMTs arrived and much more gently and with care put a brace on him and got him on board. About 10 minutes after that, a medical chopper landed in a close clearing and life-flighted him away. I tried looking up if the kid was okay, but never saw anything. I don't think he died because it would have made the news in the local area, but I still wonder if he had lasting injuries. I get the man was trying to help, but damn. Story 8. I'm not a first responder anymore, but one of my first arson cases was an absolutely hilarious disaster. This husband and wife hated each other but didn't want to get divorced. What they did want was a new house. So they poured kerosene on approximately 60 rags and stuffed them under the end table next to the couch. Then an empty kerosene lamp on the end table. Then they took a 5-gallon gas can full of gas, took the spout off, and placed it in their master bedroom closet. They are completely devoid of all clothing in the master bedroom, except for 2 jackets with tassels, with the price tags still on them. Then they opened all their safes and left them empty and open in the middle of the bedroom. Then they took all the pictures out of the house and replaced them with random photos they printed off the internet. They then removed the televisions and replaced them with old TVs. They put the flat-screen televisions in their barn. Then they poured a clear trail of gasoline down the hallway. Their alibi was that on that day of the fire they were trying to sell their canoe. They finally got a buyer, but the only time that they could meet the buyer was at 3 a.m. that night. So they drove 2 hours away to sell a canoe at 3 a.m. the very same night. They then tried to claim the unlit, non-electric kerosene lamp must have exploded. Then they claimed that their crackhead neighbors were trying to frame them for arson. Then the husband claimed that his wife was trying to frame him for arson because she quotes, "a Blackfoot Indian, and they are notorious for not wanting to work." Then he claimed that Sears was trying to frame him for arson because they were tired of paying his settlement after being injured at work 25 years prior. It was a good time. You reminded me of one of the legendary stories one of my instructors would tell when I was in court reporting school. Warning, gruesome animal death ahead. A couple was going through an ugly divorce. Neither wanted to leave the marital home for fear that they'd be accused of abandoning it, which would be used against them in the divorce proceedings. So they both stayed and just tried to live their separate lives in different wings of the house. They didn't have kids, thankfully, but they were fighting over custody of their pet poodle. Time marches on, courts move slowly, nothing's getting resolved, and the piece of crap husband decides he's had enough and wants to send a message. He decides, as abusers often do, that if he can't have the poodle, no one can have the poodle. They both leave for work at their regular time one morning, but then the husband doubles back once he's sure the wife is gone. He takes the poodle out to the backyard, leashes it to the stake in the ground, straps a stick of dynamite to it, lights the fuse, and drives the hell out of there. The flaw in his plan? The poodle gets loose from the stake and runs back inside the house with the explosives. Boom. Not only was the piece of crap husband now facing a number of criminal charges, but the icing on the cake was that since it was his actions that led to the destruction of the marital home, he owed the wife for the value of the whole thing, which was at least $600,000. Rest in peace, poodle, though. Disclaimer, as I said, this story was relayed to me by someone else, so I can't back up anything, but it's entertaining enough. Something like this happened in my old city. A couple went broke and decided to blow up their house for the insurance money, so they put all their valuables in a storage unit and scheduled a trip to Vegas. But on their way out, they turned on the gas on their stove or something. They put some metal crap in the microwave and rigged it on a timer to start the next day. Well, the house blew up all right. It destroyed the 2 neighboring homes and unalived at least 1 person. They were convicted of murder after the cops presented hilarious evidence, including records from their ISPs where they Googled how to blow up a house and a recorded conversation with their insurance company when they asked if they would get money if their house blew up. My father used to be a 911 dispatcher. Was also an EMT for 5 years and a firefighter for over 30 years. The worst call he ever took was from a woman who said that her house was on fire. She was trapped in the burning house and could not get out. First responders did not make it in time. He had to stay on the line and listen to her as she burned to death. He also witnessed, while responding to an unalive call, one of his friends shot himself in the face with a shotgun. He was still alive after the shotgun blast. They saved his life. He also responded to an ATV rollover of one of his friend's kids. ATV landed on the kid's face, shattered his skull. His jaw is no longer attached. My dad had to hold his face together while they transported the kid to the hospital, an over 45-minute drive. Kid survived. There are countless other calls that I could tell my dad has witnessed a lot. Nicest man you will ever meet. I have a 4-month-old son, my first kid, and all I can think of is the terrible ways in which my brother got hurt. My sisters and I broke bones or had minor incidents, but my brother, man, bit straight through his lower lip on a 4-wheeler after hitting a stump. Concussions, blood, and broken bones trying to freaking make his own zip line from a freaking fan to the garage. It's nice to hear that, much like my brother, that little boy survived. I'm great in a crisis. My life and my military career have proven that, but when it's my own son? Eek. My dad also used to be a firefighter and told me stories. For me, and he confessed to him too, was the one where this 10-year-old was playing next to a railway, on one of those big electric boxes with all the generator things inside. It started raining and the box was faulty, electrocuting the kid so deeply that his clothes burned into his skin. My dad held him until he passed, and his last words were, "I'm so cold." Rain plus burns. My grandpa was a 911 dispatcher as well. He was on the line when his friend got K-worded in a shootout. It was a big deal where we live. They even made a movie about it. He says that was his worst call. On a brighter note, his best call was when he talked a guy through delivering a baby in the middle of a bad storm. My grandma let me listen to the recording one time, and it's super funny. My grandpa has a very flat and monotone voice, and the other guy's just freaking out, and the man was like, "What do I do? Should I boil water? Isn't that what people do? Should I get towels?" And my grandfather just calmly says, "Sir, I don't think there's time for that. Please check that the baby is coming out head first." Story 10. My friend is a first responder. He once got a call about a man who had fallen in the shower. He gets there and the guy is over 400 pounds and out cold on the bathroom floor. My friend, his partner, and the guy's roommate try everything they can think of to get this guy on the stretcher, but the bathroom is tiny and they can't even roll him over. Eventually, they call 2 more ambulances and finally get the guy out of the bathroom. They get to the elevator and it's too small to fit the guy on the stretcher, so 6 paramedics have to carry the guy down 5 flights of stairs. My friend called in sick for the rest of the week because he was so sore and stiff he couldn't move. Something very similar to this happened to my dad when he was on city fire. EMTs call for additional assistance and his engine company rolls to the scene. The patient weighs 500 pounds, has fallen and broken her leg in her apartment, on the 4th floor of a walk-up apartment building built before World War II. Like your situation, the elevator was too small to get the gurney in. They ended up using a Stokes stretcher, slightly easier to maneuver in the stairwell than the gurney, and one of the EMTs and the entire engine company carried her down all 4 flights. Story 11. Got a call from a male ready to end it all. Went to the house, and we could see through the glass someone holding a big knife, and it looked to be a female. It was some type of stained glass stuff, so we asked what was going on and if Brian, names have been changed, was home. She yelled, "Brian isn't here anymore!" Which isn't great to hear from someone holding a knife. So we make entry into the house and after much confusion figure out that the lady we saw through the window was actually Brian and was transitioning, or had transitioned to Brianna. She was in her 50s and had been struggling for a long time because she worked at a place with the same coworkers for 20 years. And after starting her transition, she was made fun of and left out of conversations. Her family wasn't supportive, and apparently when she went online to seek help from groups, she was too old and wasn't accepted by them either, so she wanted to unalive herself because of how alone she felt. I was able to chat with her for a while and convinced her to go to the hospital with me. She was going to go regardless, but there's less stress or danger for everyone if they come voluntarily. When we arrived at the hospital, she said that she was too scared to get out of the car. My shift had ended like 30 minutes earlier. I asked her if holding my hand would help. She said yes. So I get out of the car and hold her hand while walking into the hospital. I'm 5'6", and she's at least 6'2", and outweighs me by 100+ pounds. So I'm holding her hand, and my hand is at eye level for me. We go in, and I tell the nurse at the ER that this is Brianna and she is having a bad night, code for wanting to K-word herself. The nurse gets her a room, which is where we part ways. I say something to her about getting help and happier days ahead, and she quietly asks for a hug before I go. I say sure, and I give her a hug. Sometimes I wonder if she found a support group, and if not, if she's still around. I hope so. Stuff like this is part of why I changed my stance on the trans thing. I still don't understand 100% the mindset behind it, and probably never will because it's not a situation I've personally been in, but if simply accepting or supporting someone can really have that much of an impact, then I would be the world's worst person if I didn't. Good on you for helping her, and I hope she found more like-minded people to help her feel accepted and validated. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you would like to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.